My name is Tamati Ruakoha, and this is my story. Growing up, I was the oldest, the favorite son. My father, Chief Tamati Ruakoha, had me in mind to succeed him when his time was done, and as far as he was concerned, I could do no wrong. The rest of the tribe agreed with him, for the most part. I was the only Goliath in the tribe with the markings of the victor, which seemed to reinforce this view. I was chosen by the Kalan Vale, destined to be Ruakoha's greatest warrior, and to lead them into even greater prosperity than even my father had, and he was considered to be a great leader. I had perhaps a bit less patience for learning history than some, but I know who my people are and what they stand for. I am a skilled hunter, and even more skilled as a warrior, and my intuition is strong. My people saw me as a hero on the rise. Well, mostly anyway. My younger brother Tane always hated the fact that I was the golden child. His jealousy and ambition made our relationship very tense. Toward the end of my time with my tribe, my father's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Because he was the chief and he was my father, I did not want to admit to myself that the authority which he held was corrupting him. Unfortunately, I was forced to accept this when he condemned Ihaka to death out of greed. Ihaka is a good man, practically an uncle to me. He'd been my father's best friend since they were children, and he'd served loyally as an advisor to him when he became chief. One day, while hunting, Ihaka went to visit the settlement of the nearby Rona tribe, with whom the Ruakoha frequently traded, but found their settlement in ruins, littered with the bodies of the dead. He found the body of a stranger among them, an orc wearing the symbols of Hijata, a tribe of orcs that lived and hunted some 20 miles from the edges of the Ruakoha territory. It laid there, still holding tightly to the shaft of a great spear, its point buried deep into the heart of the biggest dire boar Ihaka had ever seen. A few survivors came out and told Ihaka what had happened. The dire boar had rampaged through the Rona settlement, killing everything in its path. The Hijata orc, probably a lone hunter passing by, saw this and rushed in to help his enemies. He protected the women and children while they fled to safety, suffering fatal wounds in the process. And with his final breath, he struck the blow that killed the beast, and then collapsed. Every last one of the adult men of the Rona tribe were dead, having fought like demons trying to kill the beast. Ihaka, hearing this, brought the survivors of the Rona back with him to join the Ruakoha tribe, leaving the Rona territory to the Hijata as a thanks for their warrior's great honor. The Rona insisted that Ihaka take the Hijata Great Spear as payment for allowing them to join the Ruakoha tribe. My father graciously accepted the Rona survivors into the tribe, but he tried to force Ihaka to give him the Great Spear almost immediately, claiming that as the chief, he had the right to it. Ihaka refused, saying the Hijata Great Spear was a weapon of honor, not a toy to be taken on a whim. To give away the weapon would dishonor the people who had entrusted it to him as thanks for giving them a new home. Kopu Nui claimed that as chief, he was the one granting the refugee sanctuary, and that Ihaka had overstepped his bounds in promising such a thing without consulting him first, and that as such, the honor was his to take. Ihaka said that the Kalan Vale wouldn't see it that way, that not helping the Rona survivors would be tantamount to killing them himself. He asked my father when he'd become so selfish and short-sighted. My father responded with a vicious gut punch to Ihaka, taking the Great Spear from him and ordering the guards to seize him and tie him up. Kopu Inui planned to have Ihaka executed the next morning, citing treason and conspiracy to overthrow him as the reasons. His punishment? Death by fire. My father didn't realize I'd been nearby, able to see and hear this entire situation. About an hour before dawn the next day, I cut Ihaka free and told him to flee while he still could. He thanked me, gathered his family, and disappeared into the night, leaving the spear with my father. With this done, I summoned up my courage and went to confront my father. There was no conversation. When he realized what I had done, he began beating me mercilessly. At first, I fought back, but my father was even stronger than I was, and he soon overpowered me, kicking me over and over while I was down. By the time someone realized what was happening and pulled him off, he'd broken several of my ribs and left me bleeding and close to death. my sister Kaya saw this and carried my unconscious body away into the wilderness. Kaya managed to set my broken bones, then spent her time gathering herbs and tending to my wounds while I slipped in and out of consciousness. She kept moving me carefully from place to place to avoid the scouting party sent by my father. This went on for almost a month. When I finally came to, the two of us decided we weren't going back. My father had become something that I could no longer respect, and neither of us were strong enough to stand against him. It was only another week after this before they found us. A dozen Goliaths fell on me and Kaya. We fought them, trying not to kill them because after all, they were still our tribe. And I knew they were only acting on Father's orders. I was able to knock 3 of them unconscious before they overpowered us and seized us both. Kaya nodded at me as if to say, "Goodbye, brother." Then she closed her eyes, muttered something, and made some motions with the fingers of her restrained hands. There was a flash of green light, and suddenly I was alone. Somewhere unfamiliar. Somewhere else. Kaya had sent me away with some kind of magic to protect me, even if I wanted to return to face my father someday. I don't know how to get there. If I ever come across them, I will know those mountains, the mountains of my home. But no map can tell me where they are. I'd only ever known one small part of the world, and I may never see it again. For the last 10 years, I've been wandering from town to town, looking for the mountains of my home, and adapting to the way the world works outside of my tribe. Early in my travels, I came across a group of dwarves who took me in and taught me about friendship, mining, and what the true meaning of value really is. After a time with them, I realized I needed to refocus and return to finding my home again. I need to know what happened to my sister. I need to know if she's alive or dead. I need to know what happened to Ihaka. Did my father's army catch up to him and his family? There are too many questions that need to be answered to stay in one place for too long. I now spend my time searching for any news that I can about my family and my home. In each of the towns I visit, I try and find any work that I can to get money to help keep me going. Occasionally this work would include prize fights. During these fights, I would look for ways to adapt their fighting styles to mine, in preparation for the time that I know will come, when I will have to face my father again. My goal is terrifying, and my path unknown, but my focus is clear, and my resolve is strong. Until one morning, when all that changed.